Welcome back, everyone. We've got an awesome deep dive plan for you today, all about emotional communication.
Should be interesting. Yeah.
It really is. We've got this great material from psychologist Dr. John Gottman to work from. And
Oh, yeah. Gottman's work is always fascinating. So much depth to unpack.
it's true.
Yeah.
And the thing that really caught my eye was his take on how we use, figures of speech, metaphors, stuff like that.
Right. Like when we say someone's anger is like a teapot about to explode.
Exactly. It seems so simple, but he argues that those comparisons can actually give us a lot of insight into how we feel and how we connect with other people.
Definitely. It's like metaphors are these secret windows into our emotional world. We often use them without even realizing what we're revealing.
It's true.
Hmm.
And I was thinking about this, like, we learn about metaphors in school, right? Like in English class, dissecting poems.
Of course. Yeah.
I don't know if you remember this poem, The Highwayman.
Oh, vaguely. Yeah.
There's that line, the road was a ribbon of darkness over the purple moor.
Ah, yeah. Alfred Noyce.
It's so evocative, right? You can practically see and feel the scene.
Absolutely. He's not just describing the road, he's creating a whole mood, a sense of mystery.
Exactly. And that's what I find so fascinating about Gottman's work. He's suggesting that the metaphors we use for our emotions work in the same way.
Right. They paint a picture of what's going on inside.
They do. So instead of just saying, my marriage ended badly, someone might say, my marriage was a train wreck.
Oh, that's a powerful one, yeah.
It is, right. It's not just about the fact that the marriage is over.
Mm-hmm.
The metaphor suggests chaos, hurt, this feeling of things going off the rails.
Like it was unexpected, maybe, or out of control. You get a sense of the emotional experience behind the event, not just the event itself.
It's like if someone says they're trying to stay afloat financially, they're not just talking about their bank account. They're expressing this fear of being overwhelmed, like they're drowning in debt.
Exactly. Or think about someone saying, my father likes to play God.
Oh, wow, that's
Right. It suggests feelings of being controlled, maybe a lack of trust in the father's intentions. It's a starting point for a whole deeper conversation about those feelings.
okay. This is starting to feel less like analyzing poetry and more like having a superpower. But are we in danger of reading too much into these metaphors? I mean, maybe someone just likes the way a certain phrase sounds.
That's a good point, and of course we have to be careful about jumping to conclusions.
Right.
It's not about taking every metaphor literally, but it is about paying attention to them and asking the right questions.
So it's more about use them as a springboard for understanding, not a final diagnosis.
Absolutely, because the beauty of metaphors is that they can open the door to more meaningful communication. Instead of just hearing the words, we start to understand the feelings beneath them.
What's really blowing my mind, though, is this idea that metaphors aren't just random figures of speech. Like, they're actually connected to how our brains develop, right?
That's right, it goes way back.
I'm fascinated by that. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so there's this psychologist, Richard Kopp.
Okay.
He suggests that metaphors tap into our early brain development. Think about it. As babies, we relied on concrete images to understand abstract concepts. We didn't have the language for security, but we understood the feeling of a warm blanket.
So we start forming these associations between physical sensations and feelings really early on.
Exactly. And Kopp argues that this process continues throughout our lives. Metaphors help us make sense of complex emotions by linking them to those early tangible experiences.
I like that. It's like instead of just saying, I feel anxious, you say, I have butterflies in my stomach.
Perfect example. Or the classic, time is money. That one's so ingrained in our culture.
It is. We're always trying to save time, make the most of it like it's a limited resource we could run out of.
Exactly, and see how that shapes our behavior. We value time, we expect returns on investments of time, we feel guilty about wasting time.
It's like time becomes this commodity instead of, just a part of life.
Now imagine if we shifted that metaphor. What if instead of time is money, we said time is a river?
That changes things, yeah.
Right. How does that feel different?
Well, it's more fluid, less pressured, like time is just flowing and you can't really hold on to it or control it.
Exactly. You're not trying to save time anymore, you're just going with the flow.
I can see how these different metaphors could lead to some real conflicts in relationships, though. Like if one person is all about saving time and the other is more about going with the flow.
You're absolutely right. And Gottman talks about this too. He gives the example of one person trying to save time while their partner is trying to let go of time constraints.
Oh, I can see how that would create tension.
Absolutely. Because they're operating from these fundamentally different metaphors of what time even is.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's not just about the words, It's about the underlying metaphors that shape our whole perception of the situation.
Exactly. And recognizing that can be a huge step towards better communication and understanding.
Yeah, I'm starting to see how powerful this stuff can be.
Me too. And we're just scratching the surface here.
I know there's so much more to explore, but I think we need to take a quick break.
Sounds good. We'll be back in a moment to dive even deeper into the world of emotional communication.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after a short break. So we've been talking about how these simple metaphors can actually reveal a lot about what's going on in a relationship.
Yeah, it's amazing how much they can tell us.
It is. But, it makes you wonder, where do these metaphors even come from in the first place? Like, are we just picking them up from our culture, or is there something deeper going on?
Well, that's where it gets even more interesting. Gottman suggests that these metaphors, especially the ones tied to our childhood memories, can actually point to some pretty deep-seated emotional patterns.
Okay, you're going to have to give me an example here.
Okay.
That sounds fascinating.
So he talks about this patient who struggled with really intense self-criticism. And the way this patient described it, his self-criticism was like a basket full of whips.
Wow, okay, I can feel that.
Right. It's a powerful image, really visceral.
It is. You can practically feel the weight of that self-criticism, that constant feeling of being judged.
Exactly. And the therapist actually suggested that he try imagining a basket full of teddy bears
Oh,
instead.
that's so much nicer.
Right. It's such a simple shift, but it completely changes the feeling.
It does. Instead of that harsh judgment, there's a sense of comfort, almost like self-compassion.
And that's the power of reframing those negative metaphors. It can really change how we see ourselves and how we interact with the world.
It makes you think, what other metaphors might be lurking in our subconscious,
Yeah,
shaping our emotions without us even realizing it?
exactly. That's why it's so important to pay attention to those recurring images and phrases in your own life, especially the ones tied to childhood.
Like, what images keep popping up?
Yeah.
What might they be trying to tell you about your emotional needs?
Exactly. It's almost like a treasure hunt for hidden meanings.
Okay, but can we actually change those patterns, those deep-seated things, just by understanding the metaphors?
Well, it's a starting point. It's about becoming more aware of the stories we're telling ourselves, right?
Right.
And then asking, are those stories serving us? If not, maybe we can start to rewrite them, replace that basket of whips with something more nurturing.
That's a powerful idea. It's like we have more control over our emotional landscape than we think we do.
Exactly. We're not just at the mercy of our feelings. We can actually shape them.
That's really cool. So, we've been talking a lot about metaphors and how they influence our emotions. But there's something else in your notes that I wanted to touch on, and that's this idea of finding shared meaning.
Right. Yeah.
It seems like such a crucial ingredient for any strong relationship,
Yeah.
even when, conflicts are inevitable.
You're absolutely right. And Gottman has this great story about this unlikely pair, Brian, an oil executive, and Ron, an environmental lawyer.
Okay, talk about two people who probably see the world in totally different ways.
You would think so. But despite their very different political views, they end up bonding over their shared values as fathers.
So even when there are these fundamental disagreements, you can still find that common ground, that shared meaning.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not about agreeing on everything either.
Right, okay.
What's interesting about Brian and Ron is that they each took the time to understand the idealism behind each other's positions.
So even if they didn't agree on the approach, they could at least see the shared values driving those positions.
Exactly. And that's such a powerful thing.
It is, because it reminds us that even when we disagree, there might be a deeper purpose or value that unites us.
Absolutely. And whether it's a couple, a family, or even a work team, that sense of shared purpose can really strengthen those bonds.
It can. Which brings us to this idea of rituals, which I know is another big theme in Gottman's work.
Oh, yeah, rituals are fascinating.
They are. But, when we talk about rituals, I think people often picture these formal ceremonies like weddings or funerals.
Right, the big stuff.
But they could be so much more than that, right?
Oh, absolutely. Rituals can be anything from a simple hello to your coworkers each morning to something much more elaborate and symbolic.
And what's really cool is how those rituals tap into our different emotional command systems.
You got it.
Yeah.
It's like they speak to different parts of who we are.
Yeah. Remind me about those systems again. I read about them in Gottman's book, but I'd love to hear you explain them.
Sure, so you have the nest builders
Yeah.
who really thrive on those rituals that express belonging and support.
Like family dinners, holidays, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Things that strengthen those close bonds and create a sense of security.
Okay. And then there are the commanders-in-chief who are more drawn to rituals that focus on achieving goals, maintaining order.
Right, like a team huddle before a game or a company's annual planning session.
Okay, I see.
It's all about structure and direction for them.
Right, right. And then, of course, we have the jesters who love those rituals that bring in laughter and fun.
Oh, absolutely. Game nights, parties, going to see a comedy show, anything that adds a little playfulness to life.
It's like they need that release from the everyday stress.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to remember that there's no one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to rituals.
Right. You have to find the ones that work for you and the people you're with.
Exactly. It's about finding those activities that bring people together in a meaningful and hopefully enjoyable way.
That makes sense. But I have to admit, I always think of rituals as being a positive thing.
Well, they can be, definitely.
But I'm curious about what you were saying earlier about how rituals can also be misused.
Yeah, that's the flip side, unfortunately.
Because I think we tend to associate them with, connection and tradition and all these good things. So what's the potential downside? It's true. We usually think of rituals in a good way.
Right, but they can definitely have a shadow side.
So how can something that's supposed to be about connection and belonging actually end up causing problems?
Well, like anything else, rituals can be misused, They can become a way to manipulate or even control people.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Like, instead of bringing people closer, they can actually create more distance and tension.
That makes sense.
Gottman actually talks about this couple, a Jewish couple,
Okay.
and the husband was very, very strict about following all the religious rituals,
Okay.
but it ended up causing a lot of conflict in their marriage.
Oh, wow.
Because instead of being these shared moments of connection, the rituals became like a way for him to judge his wife or make her feel bad.
It's like they lost their original meaning.
Exactly. They became more about control than connection.
So it's not just about having rituals, it's about how you approach them.
Absolutely. It's all about finding that balance, that flexibility.
This reminds me of that Coca-Cola commercial,
Yeah.
where the family reunion gets all messed up because the great-great-grandmother insists on having Coke.
Oh, yeah. I remember that one.
It's funny, but it also makes a point, right?
It does. Rituals should be adaptable, not rigid.
They should enhance relationships, not hinder them.
Exactly. And I think that's a good reminder for all of us to take a look at the rituals in our own lives.
Yeah, good point.
Are there any that are causing more harm than good? Or are there opportunities to create new rituals that might pull us closer to the people we care about?
This whole conversation has been so eye-opening. It really makes you realize that emotional communication goes way beyond just the words we're saying.
Oh, it totally does. It's so much more nuanced than that.
There are all these layers. The metaphors we use, those emotional command systems, the rituals that shape our interactions.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. But understanding all these pieces, it can really help us build stronger, more fulfilling relationships.
Absolutely. And isn't that what we all want in the end?
It is. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the fascinating world of emotional communication, what's the one key takeaway you want to leave our listeners with?
Just pay attention. Notice the metaphors people use. Think about the rituals that shape your life. Be mindful of those different emotional command systems.
Because those little details, they can make a huge difference.
They can. And they can really give you a whole new perspective on yourself and the people around you.
Okay, so here's a final thought-provoking question for everyone to chew on as we sign off.
I like it. Hit us with it.
What metaphor best describes your current state of mind?
Oh, that's a good one.
And what does that reveal about what you need emotionally right now?
It's a question worth asking yourself.
It is. Because sometimes those metaphors, they can be like a little roadmap to understanding our own hearts.
So true. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. And to all our listeners, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of emotional communication. We hope you've learned some valuable insights that you can take with you into your everyday lives. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.